Welcome to the Driven Young podcast with Byron Dempsey, dedicated to educating and inspiring the younger generation around entrepreneurship and practical life skills we aren't taught in school. Created for young people who seek direction in establishing their goals and passions. This podcast provides a platform for discussing the steps taken by professionals in their field related to handling finances, making money online, starting a business, growing a network, and much more. And now your host, Byron Dempsey.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Today's guest is a good friend of mine. Ronsley is a producer of the audio documentary, The Psychology of Entrepreneurship. He is an international and TED speaker and the author of the book Amplify, How to Raise Your Voice, Boost Your Brand, and Grow Your Business. Ronsley is the founder of an audio marketing agency, Amplify, which focuses on giving brands a voice. He also hosts the largest podcasting event in the Southern Hemisphere, which I attended back in 2018, and it gave me the idea to start this show. In this conversation, we dive deep into imposter monster, or imposter syndrome, which everyone in the world faces and can be especially prominent with young people who don't have any experience. It's basically that voice in the back of your head saying, who am I to be doing this? Who am I to be applying for this job or going for this degree or whatever it is? We talk about getting your foot in the door, we chat about life, about business, and the opportunities us young people have nowadays. So now, over to Ronsley.
Ronsley, welcome so much to the podcast.
Thanks, man.
Super excited to cover this topic, which I've been wanting to cover for a while on this podcast.
Is it because you came to We Are Podcast last year?
Yeah. That was a big driving factor for starting the podcast, because I was met all these cool people and I was just like, okay, this is something I want to do. Because literally I launched it, 2 months ago? So this was like an 8-month period. It took me so long to get it started.
Why do you think that was?
Well, I had to plan it out, and then I wanted to do the whole video strategy. So there was a whole thing I had to systemize. Yeah. And I wanted to talk, I put spreadsheets of all the topics I wanted to cover. Yeah. And then I did branding done and everything. But finally got it launched. So
nice.
But yeah, We Are Podcast was a big driver, and meeting Pat and Jordan and all those cool guys. I was like, yeah, this is cool.
Nice.
It's just a cool environment to be in.
Nice.
So, but yeah, I'm excited to talk about imposter monster, or whatever whatever the name is.
I think imposter monster, people use different words. It's imposter syndrome. It's actually not either one of those. It's actually, I think it's called imposter phenomenon or something.
Yeah.
The actual psychology term. But yeah, man, I mean, you've been listening to the show. What questions do you have?
Yeah, so for anyone out there, Ronsley just launched a podcast, Psychology of Entrepreneurship, which is all about this imposter monster, an audio documentary. I'm not sure, we're up to 11 episodes now.
Yeah, but it started off with the idea that, I would explore what imposter syndrome was really. Yeah. But it's moved on to way more than that. It's it's basically what goes on in the mind of a creative, an athlete, a performer, an entrepreneur, and what stops us or fuels us to make quicker decisions or slower decisions or move to wherever we want to do. I think mainly for creatives, because I think creative people are extremely creative, but they don't know how to sustain that creativity because there's no way to get money for it, and there's this whole notion of if I sell my art, I'm selling my soul, sort of thing. And
I think it's also imposter syndrome. If we're to kind of bring it down, it's you're not doing something because you've got this thing in your head, who am I to be doing this? And so if we had if someone like an engineer, which isn't a creative industry, they've got the degree, so it's I'm doing this because I've got my degree. With someone in the creative industry, they often might not have a piece of paperwork that shows them that they're qualified to do this, and they're just doing it, and it's kind of who am I to be designing for Vogue? Who am I to be doing whatever it is?
Yeah, I think there are two levels of that, especially in today's world of social media, how quickly things are being showcased. And if you look on Instagram, there's this everyone puts up all the cool stuff, right? So everyone has this idea of what success looks like. So that voice is actually really good because it should keep us grounded. That voice doesn't necessarily go away. The voice is, you're meant to make friends with that voice because it keeps you grounded. And what I mean by grounding is if you have never done a podcast before, or if you have never done video before, you have never put out content before, that imposter syndrome is really important in those scenarios, because I don't know whether you've ever tried surfing. Have you ever tried surfing?
I literally recently. I moved next to the beach, so I've tried it.
Yeah.
I'm terrible.
What's really interesting is when we go surfing for the first time, we expect to ride that board. We think that it's going to be, I'm going for a class. How I am going to ride it initially, right? And then you get there and you realize, wait, my top part of my body is not connected to the bottom part of my body. There's a whole bunch of different things that you need to learn and understand and figure out before you can stand up on that board. And I think that's the same. And I think what tends to happen in entrepreneurship, especially with social media, is that we have that illusion that it's easy, right? And we go, well, if that 18-year-old could do it,
why can't I?
So it must be easy because that guy's got a great life. So and he's sipping margaritas in Bali, so it must be easy. But what work has this person done to get to that point?
Because Instagram is just sipping margaritas in Bali and he's on the beach and everything, but you're not seeing him on the computer in the office or doing whatever he is for however long.
Right, and what he or she has done to allow that platform to do what it's doing. I mean, I say this a lot. Amplify is the overnight success that took 11 years to build. No, like I don't know how many people know about the hard part of the journey necessarily, or even pay attention to the hard part of my journey.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that they should. I'm just saying, to give me sympathy, I think they should pay attention to it, because I don't know whether there's an easy path necessarily. Some things come easily because you worked for it.
Yeah.
But
it's also good because it's like, okay, if I want to get here, I've got to work as hard as this guy. And so you seeing how hard they really are working, you can either go, I don't want to work that hard, I'm going to do something else.
Right.
Or you can go, I'm willing to work that hard, I want to do it. But the problem is, as you mentioned, we don't see them working hard, we just see the outcome. So we're like, I want to try this, you'll give up after a few months, or you won't, you'll get, your friends will make fun of you, or whatever it is.
And we also have the tendency to say, I want to be like that.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be the Gary Vee, or I want to be the whoever else, right? But we're not asking, well, what are the reps that Gary Vee has done, to be able to do what Gary Vee does today? And are we willing to put those reps in? And the chances are we're not.
And if you listen to his reps, I'm not willing to do that. If you listen to, he worked he always talks about how he didn't work, he took like 3 or 4 days off in his entire 20s and all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't want that. Like, I want to have a good business and have all the success, but not at the cost of
But see, that's really important.
Freedom.
The point is that as someone young, right, it's super important to respect the platform. The platform that you've been given, that you have the fucking choice to say that. Gary did not have that choice. I did not have that choice. A lot of people don't have that option as a choice even. So be privileged and feel privileged that you have that option to make that choice. And I think that's important.
Oh, 100%. I'm always saying, like, with social media, can be really dark and create a lot of social anxiety and mental health stuff, but it's also got huge benefits. We can skip years and years of work with social media. We can educate ourselves with podcasts like this, or you can YouTube. I've learned so much of YouTube. All my video skills came from YouTube, and like Peter McKinnon and all these amazing YouTubers who put out video content around how to create videos and stuff.
Right.
And so I think we're able to skip working 10 years in your liquor store, working hard to build these skills, and we can learn them a lot quicker. We can read books and get access to all this education, and use social media to build a business. Versus what you didn't have, or what people.
But information is only. There's no shortage of information. Right. We can read a whole bunch of stuff and
you don't
have all the plans and all that kind of stuff. But it's in the execution that the real learning happens, because even like doing something like half a marathon, for example, like I need to do certain things on a regular basis in 16 weeks to be able to even attempt to cross that line. And if I don't, it's going to be extremely hard. And I think for entrepreneurship, maybe those reps are not clear.
No, they're incredibly unclear, I would say. How do you become a successful entrepreneur? Or how do you build your own business? Or, even in creative industry, it can be quite unclear because there's no structure. And that's kind of like where it's my problem with the education system, is they're only accommodating to this
Right.
the education system and how it's been for the past 50 years, they're only accommodating to doctors, engineers, lawyers, traditional path, which is great if that's what you want to do. But if it's not, it's very unclear. And that's why it's kind of like a thing. It's like, oh yeah, I'm doing my own thing, and people will be like, oh, so you're unemployed, or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I think that culture is changing, and I think it's important to hear those things too, because I'm almost going to be 40 now, so it's like I feel old in the entrepreneurship game, even though I'm like a juvenile in the entrepreneurship game, compared to a lot of other people who've been here for a lot longer. But I was super cocky in the initial stages of my entrepreneurship journey, because I didn't know any different. Like I didn't know that I could fall in the water and drown, as an example. Like, because I was naive, right? I was just like, oh yeah, I can run, I can sprint for a kilometer easy. When you start and you get to 100 meters, you realize, wait, this is not really easy.
Yeah.
So that's why the imposter syndrome, when you're thinking about it, is super important, because we get cocky, especially young people.
Yeah.
That's why insurance is more expensive for under 25s, is because
100%.
we have that blood that rushes through our head. And I suppose one of the things that I wish I had earlier was more humility.
Yeah.
I think.
How do you think you achieve humility? Like, how have you helped achieve it now? Is it by interviewing all these people and learning from them?
I feel like I've had different stages of learning humility. I don't think I'm entirely humble necessarily. I think
anyone
I'm still
is.
learning
Yeah.
to be more humble. And I don't know what that line is. I don't know whether it's like the tall poppy syndrome versus humility. I don't know where that is, and I'm still trying to figure that out for me. And I think one of the most recent ones was like just respect myself. I think I was really, really disrespectful to me for like 38 years of my life. But before that, I think 3 months after getting married, to have like a business shut at $500,000 in debt was really humbling.
Yeah.
Not at the time.
But looking back on it.
Yeah. I mean, I told someone the story this morning at breakfast that I went from never wanting to be married ever to wanting to get married in 3 days from meeting Rochelle.
Yeah, right.
So I would keep asking people, what's the role of a husband? And like a whole bunch of people told me provider. So it was provide, and that was the definition I got.
It's a very traditional, like the Bible sort of thing, like
Right.
you're hunter provider. It's like it's kind of different nowadays.
Yeah. And what happened was the world was like, well, learn to be a real provider sort of thing, and it's not only about the money.
Oh yeah, no.
So I think that situation of being $500,000 in debt, 3 months married, and that was definitely a learning experience and humility.
That was from your restaurant?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you started the restaurant and it just went under and you're $500,000 in debt.
Yeah, I mean, we did service on Saturday night, and on Sunday the locks were changed, and everyone kept telling me to talk to their lawyers, and I didn't have money to hire a lawyer to talk to other lawyers, so it was just one of those things that I had to walk away from everything, including my grandmother's tablecloths that were left in the restaurant, because we couldn't enter. There was some issue with the building, and it was just a lock on the door. So, but it couldn't pay enough money for that kind of lesson.
Yeah, best thing that's happened to you. Yeah,
because I would still be flipping burgers, behind this counter.
And that's something that I find is consistent between all my guests or anyone I follow online, all the people I consider successful and I look up to. They all have the same story. Something terrible. They've had something that's happened that at the time seems like the end of the world, but a few years later or a few months later or whatever it is actually, okay, now it's got me to where I am. And I needed that. And
also what's really interesting, Byron, that you bring that up, is that I don't think that necessarily changes. Right? I don't necessarily think it, and we are so hard on ourselves because we're like, oh, this shouldn't be happening to me because I should be successful. It should happen this way. I can't have failure. But everyone does it. Everyone goes through that failure, and whether it is big, like having $500,000 in debt, or whether it's small, where, you know, maybe one of your key people leave, or a client, whatever it is, whatever you feel is big and small, making sure that you know that you'll be fine and you'll be safe is super important, especially if you're in Australia. Like, are you kidding me?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is one of the best. I think it's one of the best countries in the world.
100%.
Like, I've been talking to this girl from America, and she's in love with it. She's talking. They don't have pay wave in America. No. All these little stuff, and you know, their health system is crazy, and it's like appreciate, you know, and that's why I've said it to almost. They're probably getting sick if people listen to my podcast regularly, but I always say take risks while you're young, because as you said, if they take a risk while you're young and you fail, you go back to your parents' house, or you probably hadn't even moved out. Like, what have you lost? Yeah. Almost, probably not much. You haven't lost, like for you, $500,000. You probably you moved back to your parents or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's like and you didn't. You know,
I had the choice to move back to my parents. My parents were in India.
Yeah. Well, but what if you had kids? What if you had responsibilities?
Oh, yeah,
it's like
it could have been way worse.
Could have been way worse, terrifying. And it's so when you're young, take the risk and not try fail, but understand that when you fail, it's a good thing. Yeah. And that's the mindset I've been shifting to. It's like every time I have a failure, I'm like, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I prevent this from happening? What have I taken away from it?
But also, like, pay attention to the ego.
Yeah.
Because the ego
100%.
is like making up all this bullshit about what other people. No one gives a shit about your failure, man.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we're the ones who like are being so hard on ourselves because some imaginary person that doesn't even exist. That, but that person is actually the voice in our head. Really, you know, it's like that. And it's crazy how the world is such a mirror experience of how we feel about ourselves.
Yeah.
So more and more, the psychology of entrepreneurship is allowing people to find out more about themselves, so that they can just be at peace of being who they are, as opposed to being another whatever, you know,
aspiring to be someone else.
Right.
Like focus on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's super important.
Yeah.
I always ask a question at the end of the podcast, and I'll ask you, not now, but what's your one piece of advice? And a lot of people go towards that area, like stop looking at everyone else, stop looking at the Instagram. You know, you have got to understand it's that iceberg thing. You're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. You're not seeing everything they've had to do. You're not seeing the struggles or whatever they've had to go through to get there. And so stop comparing yourself to them. Everyone has struggles. You know, having highs and lows is being human. Yeah. If you didn't have highs and lows, it's like there's something wrong. Yeah. And it's scary.
Yeah, 100%. And if you don't feel the highs and lows, it means like something wrong with your feelings and your emotions. And that's another thing. Like emotions, I mean, especially for guys, we're not brought up in a way that we can decipher our emotions. I had to get married to learn that I had emotions that were not happy or angry.
Yeah. So it's a whole kind of toxic masculinity thing, you know, growing up. And I think it's getting better. Yeah. But, you know, you grow up, especially as guys, you're going, as young guys, you know, I still, like, I know it's okay to cry, but I still will try my best not to. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. As opposed to just kind of letting it come out.
Yeah. And I think crying is a step, but also truly saying what you feel. And being okay if someone comes back and challenges that, because I think we stop ourselves from saying those things. Yeah. Because we're scared that we might not have a defense, or we're scared what someone else might think of us, or whatever might be the scenario. And I am saying, especially if you're young, or it doesn't matter what age you are, to be honest, if you say it out loud, you have the choice to refine your argument. You know, you have the choice to actually say, this is what I stand for, and actually, you know, have purpose. And people it's interesting how we're trying to find purpose in our life, but forgetting that purpose comes from the first part of being purposeful is being who we really are. And more that's harder because of media showing us that we should be thinner. You know, it depends on which country you are. You should be fairer or darker than. Yeah. And it is all these different elements that force us to think that we're not good enough.
And that's what imposter monster is. The feeling you're not good enough, or you're not, like, kind of what I said earlier, like, who am I to be doing this?
So there's a really important difference between having all the reps and not doing it for the first time and feeling like I don't know whether I can do this, as opposed to never have done any reps and kind of going, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get it. So the top one is toxic. The second one is toxic. It's like it's fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because there's a lot of people giving out that dumbass advice.
Yeah, and you can only it's not long term.
Well, it's nothing. It's not even It's not even short term. Like it's just the worst advice that you can give anyone. Fake it till you make it is the worst advice. Because it can be taken out of context.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I agree.
And
it's dangerous.
It's very, very, very dangerous. So I kind of want to make sure that when someone is referring to imposter monster or imposter syndrome or any of that stuff, it's not that. And there's a big difference.
So it's not, we're not saying who am I to do it. Don't just go do it because I've just said who you don't have imposter monster. It's you're saying you actually got to learn the steps. Don't do the fake it till you make it.
Yeah, do it with saying I'm a beginner. Like I'm learning this stuff. Like I'm learning. I'm a learner. So if you do it saying I'm learning this, not I'm an expert in this, then there's a difference.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, how many people have, been on Facebook for 10 years and now are social media experts?
That's it's funny because I was incredibly lucky. I came into the Dent community.
Yeah.
So I didn't start off just by starting a business.
Right.
When I started off in the Dent community, the entrepreneur community, we're both a part of, I was just doing videos and I was basically learning. I was going to all the workshops. I was for like a year. I consider that my university.
Yeah.
For like a year and a half, 2 years before I actually started my company. I was a sole trader, so I was technically, contracting stuff.
Yeah.
But I was just learning and absorbing it all in. And if I was to have started, that would have been terrifying, and I would have failed, and this to say, but I don't think it would have been a good failure. It would have been I need to go back and learn.
Yeah.
And so even then, I sort of think I learned enough when I started.
Yeah.
I still wish I prepared more, and for me, if you're going to start your own marketing company, if you can get a job in a marketing agency, so you learn how it works, learn the systems, how do they do everything, and you'll be able to just sidestep all of that learning when you start.
Amplify. There was not an audio marketing agency before Amplify started, so we are the first audio marketing agency in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not. I'm not even making that up. Amplify is not a best-selling book, so I would never call it a best-selling book. But Amplify is the first audio marketing agency in the world. So I could not go to a client and say, "Hey, pay me $5,000 a month because I'm going to do audio marketing." I did not do that. I actually said, I don't even have a name for my company, but this is what I want to do, and I intend that it's going to be $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
But as a starting point, as a beta, I'm taking my first 10 clients at $2,000 a month.
It's funny,
and I will grandfather you in, and we still have those clients that have been grandfathered in at that beta stage, because I did not have any reps, and I needed them for the reps.
It's funny. That what you just said is what I'm doing right now with my business.
Yeah.
So Harvey, Harvey.
Yeah.
He's my beta client. I've got quite a few beta clients right now, and I've kind of said, okay, my first 10 clients are going to be at this price, and then I want to up it.
Yeah.
And exactly the same, because I want to make sure everyone is happy. And so if I have beta clients, I can work. And with Harvey, I've learned so much. I'm like, oh, he needs this. I need this system. And now that I'm actually ready to go, okay, I'm confident I can take on someone and get great results.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, now I've got the confidence, and I know I've got the track record because of the beta clients.
Yeah.
And obviously, what we're talking about is very similar. But for anyone listening, you've got to figure out how can you apply this to whatever you're doing. How can you maybe get an internship instead of going straight for the job? Get an internship and learn, and you might get paid $100 a week or whatever. But still, but it doesn't matter the money.
That's another thing. It's not about the money.
It's the learning.
When I think about we hire a lot, and there's a big difference when someone understands how much the learning is worth, as opposed to the wages or the superannuation or the package or any of that stuff, if that makes sense.
Oh, and when I got my job at Glenn, I knew that's what he wanted. And I went to him, I said, I don't care how much you're paying. Like this is really cool. I know I can fit this.
Yeah.
And and he still paid me, which is great.
Yeah.
But if he hadn't paid me, I still would have done it. And I knew that's what he was looking for.
Yeah.
And same with me. If I'm starting to look for someone who can come in. It's like, I'm happy to pay them, but I want them to come in knowing that they might not get paid.
Sure.
Because I want that energy. And if you're listening to this going, how can I get a job? You need to go in with the same kind of energy going in.
I think it's the attitude, right? I mean,
attitude is everything.
Yeah, I think the empowerment attitude of if I went and bartended, I'd get $25 an hour, whatever the rate is right now. So this person has to pay me that minimum wage, and I should get super. And if I'm being a contractor, then I should double that, and it should. But so I see this a lot, right? Because we used to hire a lot of contractors initially, and you have really young people that would say, or in my other job at Bunnings, I would get $25 an hour. So this is a contractor rate, so I want $45 an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, if I hire a contractor, they get me a result.
Yeah.
I'm not training them.
Yeah.
So don't be a jackass.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy how many people don't get that, and they think that they're being taken for a ride. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
But the other thing is, what's $25 at Bunnings is only going to take you so far. But if they get $25 with you, they could, in a year's time, they've built a relationship with you. Now you're sending them clients every single week. And now they've got all this stuff coming in. But instead they were going, oh, but I want $45 now. He should be asking for 20 or 10.
But that's what I'm saying. I said, I'm like, you don't even know how to do what I'm asking you to do. I'm training you.
Yeah.
And you're telling me that you're worth $45 an hour. How did you do that math? And they have the math in front of them, and they think it's justified.
Yeah.
So it's such an attitude thing, right?
And it's such a closed-minded way of doing business. It's like, the way I see business is, if you can build relationships with people, if you can get in and, you don't devalue yourself.
Right.
And don't stay at $20 an hour, but you go in with the understanding that you're going to work for 6 months at $20 an hour because you're going to build a relationship. And then once he doesn't have to train you and he's relying on you, he'll pay you. I pay my editor in the Philippines so much more than the average rate, because I just know he's going to get it done. And I'm like, I don't have to deal with any of that training. I don't have to deal with having to review it. I know he's going to get it done.
Yeah.
And I'll pay
yourself 100%.
I'll pay double the price for that.
Yeah, easy.
And if you're going out there, getting an internship or whatever, it's kind of like, how can I learn and start bringing value to them so that it gets to a point where I actually am bringing a lot. Because at the beginning, you're probably not going to bring that much value, because they're going to be training you. Right. You're going to be training them. It's going to be annoying for you. Yeah. But after 2 or 3, 4 months or whatever it is, then it's a big difference.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's a big thing. Yeah. And what you just brought up, the whole, these guys doing that, it's annoying. But I see it as a less competition.
I mean, there'll be a bunch of people that are more that are driven, not more driven, but driven. But then there'll be a bunch of people that are entitled. Yeah. And there's a big difference between driven and entitled.
100%.
Yeah.
If we keep going into this imposter monster thing for young people, so let's say someone who's studying HSC, you grew up in New South Wales, Brisbane. I think it's different. Yeah. You get your ATAR, you score out of 100, and I think people can get very, attached to that thing. And I heard someone say the other day, I've interviewed thousands of guests, and one thing I've never asked is, what was your result? What was your high school result? What did you get? Because at the end of the day, I really don't think it's a huge deal. And so me and you are both in entrepreneurial space. And what would you say to someone who's kind of freaking out over their score and where they currently are right now, and to get into engineering, or to get into a degree they want to get into? So
I'm a bit different and unique in this scenario, because
that's good. Because I like a variety of answers for this question.
I used to be an academic because I wrote a thesis, and I've got 2 master's degrees. So I mean, but I also have to say that I went into my first business with 2 master's degrees, and it still failed. Yeah. One of them being a master's of business administration. Right. So if you're freaking out, so I do think that I've learned a lot from academia. Yeah. And I think it's being disrespected by the people who don't go to school. Yeah. And don't go to university and don't do that. And there's pros and cons to everything. And what academia and that has taught me, I can see other people who have not gone, then they don't have that. And I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing. I just know that I'm lucky that I have it. because I can take theory and I can strategize and I can do things that academics normally do, which make it more valuable. And it comes naturally to me,
but that's your personality. That's the way you learn. That's your personality, and you figure that out, right? It's like applying the academics that you've learned.
Yeah, I mean, I never really cared about my results. So I mean, my parents cared more about what scores I got than I did.
Yeah, which is quite common.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I just knew the experiences I wanted to have. So right through school, I, was in the debate, allocution, general knowledge teams, and I was also in the badminton, basketball, football, and all those teams. Actually, to be honest, I was trying to fit in somewhere, and I didn't fit in either way. But it didn't. What I'm trying to get at, my scores did not matter. I still had 2 master's degrees and 4 degrees and all that kind of stuff. So it's context, right? It's context of what you want to do and where you want to go. And when the restaurant shut, my in-laws and my parents and everyone else was like, "You got 2 master's degrees, go get a job."
Yeah.
And it would have been the easiest, possibly the easiest thing to do. And not to say I didn't get to have a job. The restaurant shut on Sunday. On Tuesday, I was a chef at the Bavarian Beer Cafe. So I had a job in 2 days.
Just to bring in money.
Oh yeah, of course. You have to bring in money.
Yeah.
Like that's like, you can't sit on your couch and kind of go, "I'm going to hope that I'm going to build a business and it's going to bring me money." So, but I just had 5 jobs in 6 months, and it was just like I'm unemployable. So, what I'm trying to get at with your question is, stressing about it's not going to make it easier. Stressing about it is not going to make your score better. Stressing about it is not going to do anything. It's just like you sitting on a rocking chair. You're just fucking rocking. You think you're doing something, but you're not doing shit. You're just not moving. It's just worthless energy being wasted.
And at the end of the day, I think after your degrees come, even if you did fail, you'll find like it won't matter. In 10 years' time, it's probably not going to matter.
No.
Because of the connections you've built. Or
that's not the point. The point is that if you really care about your score, if you really care, do something to improve your score.
Yeah.
If you don't care about your score, stressing about it is not going to improve your score.
Yes. Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So and both have you learn shit both ways.
Yeah.
Just be prepared for the learning.
And what was the transition for you? So you were, in uni doing academics, you said you got 2 masters.
Yeah.
What was the transition from kind of doing that style into starting your own business?
Yeah.
That must have been like a huge shift.
Well, my dad is the entrepreneur in the family, and I think he always thought that I was going to take over the business, and I did not want to be Richard's son, so I left home when I was 16, and I just wanted to be me and learn to be more myself. And it's crazy how that journey has unfolded. But I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I just thought of myself as a 9-to-5 person. So
9 to 5 doing your own thing.
No, 9-to-5 having a job.
Yeah.
And then after I finished my first master's in software engineering, I got this job. I remember how much I got paid: $36,500 with tax for the year. Was my
with tax. Oh my god!
For the year, I had a master's of software engineering. So this is a really good sort of example of what we were talking about earlier. I had a master's in software engineering, but what I was getting was experience, and it didn't matter what money I was getting.
Yeah.
Anyway, in a year's time, I pitched them that I wanted to implement my thesis so that they could be bought over by a bigger company, which happened. They got ISO 9001 accredited. They got bought over by a company on the Canadian Stock Exchange. And overnight, I became global software quality manager. And I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know what my job meant. I didn't know any of that. So I was like, okay, there's no one to do software quality, so I suppose I'm the guy.
Yeah.
So.
And you'd proven it by bringing them value.
Yeah, for a 30-person company in Brisbane. And then they got bought over by a 400 and something person company that was in 6 time zones. So they said, hey, can you get us accredited? And they said, do you want to do any further studies? And I said, yeah, if you're paying, I'll do an MBA, which I did at QUT in Brisbane.
MBA is?
Masters of Business Administration.
Yeah, cool.
And I worked in the day, and I had a night classes at 6 to 9, 2 or 3 times a week. And I remember my first class. It was management principles. There's a walking bridge that you walk across from the city to the campus. So I walked across that bridge, I attended that class, and I walked back, and I saw the whole world differently because I saw opportunity everywhere. So that degree kind of shifted my brain a little bit to see opportunities in places that I didn't notice them before, which awoken, I think, the entrepreneur inside me. But I didn't have any experience in entrepreneurship or business, so my imagination was quite weak in terms of what kind of business I could start. And I kind of thought, people have to eat, so let's start a restaurant. And then I had a head chef who trained me to get my chef degree while I was building that business, and it was definitely a big learning curve, because even though I had all the theory from my business administration degree, it's not the same when you're an entrepreneur and you have to balance culture, team, operations, delivery, customer service, marketing, advertising, finance,
branding,
all these elements and pillars of business that we forget exist.
And that's another thing we were talking about recently was, textbook, there's only so much you can learn in the textbook. Like, for example, my teacher in high school, when I did automotive, which was my major project, I basically rebuilt a motorbike. And so we were in the garage, he was like doing stuff, and he'd been in it, he'd been doing this for like 20, 30 years, and then he became a teacher to do it. And so he was great. He'd come over, he'd never worked on a motorbike before, but an engine's an engine, and he just knew what to do. And he's like, yeah, I've done motorbike, but it's the principle the same.
Yeah.
And then he was telling me about how all the new teachers that are coming underneath him, they never have done this. They just went to uni and they learned in a book.
Right.
They haven't actually got in.
Right.
And cars is a great example, especially this was a 1983 bike. Like you can't, the amount of things that go wrong is unbelievable. The amount of nuts that won't come off, the amount of things that go wrong that you can't learn in a textbook, you can't learn from written work, and you have to learn by actually doing.
Yeah.
And the same as in entrepreneurship or anything really.
Anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read manuals of how to swim.
Yeah.
It doesn't make you a good swimmer
or
a swimmer in general. But it's astounding how many people start an Instagram account today and call themselves an influencer or an entrepreneur with no business. But it's time.
That's the world we're in.
Yeah.
But it's come to a point where like putting entrepreneur in your bio is like almost like, oh, shut up. So you're one of those guys.
Yeah. Even
Even though like you have a big, audio marketing, so you've got a team and everything. You are a literal entrepreneur. Same with me. I've got an established company. I've got it's all. If you search in the Australian, thing, my company name is there. It's everything. Like I'm a technical entrepreneur, but I'm still ashamed to kind of put it in my bio because it's become this kind of cringy thing of like, oh, you're a self-help. You're always doing this stuff. You're an Instagram guru. You're a Facebook guru, or you're a guru, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's fascinating.
So that is a good point when it comes to being the imposter, right? So sometimes we let other people in the market make us feel like imposters, and I think that's important to pay attention to, because if who you are really as a person, as a coach, and if you coach people and that's what you do and that's what your genius is and that's how you get people results and all that kind of jazz, have no shame in calling yourself a coach. Or calling yourself an entrepreneur, or calling yourself, and if you truly believe that you're an entrepreneur, be the entrepreneur. But if you have that voice saying, dude, are you really? Pay attention, because that voice is probably coming from a place of where you have to pay attention. Every voice you got to pay attention to.
Yeah. 100%. And it's good stuff. I think, as I mentioned, before we wrap up, I like to ask this kind of one question.
Yeah.
It's a hard question, but what would your one piece of advice be for the younger generation coming out of high school, the world of social media, the world of entrepreneurship that they're kind of entering, even in uni, high school? What would you advise for them?
The most important thing is to be yourself, and what I mean by that is that you're still learning yourself. So you have to say what you feel so someone can challenge you on that, so you can refine what you really feel about certain topics. And it doesn't matter what age you are at, but especially if you're young, because coming from a place of I know it all is the quickest way for someone not to give you advice and you not take on any advice, especially.
It's also, same with you. I mean, people and they're 20, 30 years older than me, and they'll come to an event where they're one of the head speakers, but I'll sit down and I'll watch and learn from all the other speakers.
Always.
It's like all these people, so I'm going, okay, this is what these guys are doing. They're still learning. I'm 21. Why would I not be learning?
Yeah.
And because sometimes I've had that thing, it's like, I've been doing marketing for 2 years. Let's see what this guy has to say. But now I go in with the mindset like, okay, what can I learn? What can I learn from him?
Yeah.
And often they'll just simplify it. Like the other day I was at an event and I was like, what's going to teach me about marketing in 30 minutes? I don't already know. But he simplified it so much. I was like, it's actually nice to see it.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
And and I think, as you say, you can remove yourself from being cocky, and you're always learning.
Yeah, 100%. And like an addendum to that is something that Paul Dunn said to me actually when in 2014 when I was launching We Are Podcast for the first time, and I had never put on a 2-person event, leave alone 300-person event that it landed up becoming. The first podcast conference in the Southern Hemisphere, really. The imposter monster was alive and well and loud, and especially in that time. But I did not run away from that fact that I had never run an event. But I was freaking out about it, and that voice was really loud. And Paul Dunn said to me, well, forget about what you think the success is going to look like. What kind of a person would Ronsley become if he just attempted that goal?
And how would you feel if you didn't do it? Would you be like, And
it's really hard for anyone to give anyone else advice because you don't know their circumstances.
Exactly.
And their circumstances are super important. So being who you are is probably key. And then, imagine what it would be like that if you attempted a certain goal. What kind of person would you become if you just attempted it? Forget if you achieved it. It doesn't matter if you achieved it. It doesn't matter if I run the half marathon. What kind of person would I become if I just attempted to run the half marathon?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's what I would reckon.
Yeah, awesome. And just want to touch on one more thing before you mentioned this age thing, which we were talking about earlier. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are.
Yeah.
I think that can often be a part of the imposter mantra for younger people. It's like, I'm 22. I can't get a job here. I can't work for this person. You probably actually can. If you reach out to them and you say, hey, I want to come work with you for free and stuff, it blows my mind.
It's not even free. It's not even, it's not even about the free.
I want to learn from you.
It is like if you approach someone with the attitude of, I'm here to learn.
Exactly.
Oh my God, the amount of opportunities that will open up for you is going to be off the chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of some practical advice I say for people who think they're too young to be doing something. But you were talking about this, people who are 50 who don't have any experience, or someone who's 15 and has experience.
But I think what happens when you're young and you feel like, who am I to do this?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether you're young or old, actually. If you're in the position where you think, who am I to do this? The chances of you faking shit goes through the roof, because then you start saying dumb shit. Like, you know what, my client is this person, or you know what, I've done this, or you start name dropping and it's evident. So you don't have that experience to just drop. Like, you can see how uncomfortable you are.
Yeah.
And that comes through to the other person. Whether you think you said it or not, they can feel it. So that is super important, because you're trying to fake some weird version of what success looks like for you.
And that's coming back to the whole fake it till you make it.
Right.
So maybe you should learn it until you earn it, sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome. Learn it, yeah.
Don't fake it till you make it. Learn it until you earn it.
I love that, because how many people are paying like $10,000 just to get a selfie with some influencer to say, hey, check this out. that person, they don't even know who you are. Like, are you kidding me?
I think, yeah, you feel good for maybe a day or two, but really it's like...
Yeah, I think the important message is, are you really doing it? Who are you doing it for? Are you doing it for yourself?
Or what people think of you.
Or for what people think of you, or what you perceive. Like, my whole life, Byron, I went from one achievement to the next, internally trying to please my dad or my mom or my parents.
Which is very common.
Which I didn't even know until I was 38 years old or 37 years old.
So are you saying this is a bad thing or a good thing?
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's just a thing to know, you know. I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't feel any of my success. Like, people would introduce me on stage and I'd be like, oh, that guy's cool. And then I would hear my name and go, oh.
He's a TEDx speaker, he's an author, he's this. And it's like, oh shit, that's me.
And then they say my name and I'll be like, oh, fuck, it's just me. But that has changed over the last few months. Just knowing that actually what I just wanted was my parents' approval. But it wasn't me who wanted it, it was my 8.5-year-old child inside me that wanted that approval.
Yeah.
And just that, like, has changed everything for me.
And like, for me, because my parents do, you know, where I get along with my parents, they love what I'm doing, so it's easy for me to say that. But for someone who doesn't have that, for someone who's got parents who want you to go down a certain pathway, but you're going a different way.
It doesn't matter whether you get along with them or you don't get along with them.
Focus on yourself.
Focus on yourself, because I promise you there is elements of stuff that you don't even know yet, because you're not vulnerable enough to allow that to come to the surface yet. So just focus on you.
100%. No, I love it. And before we wrap up, where can people find you? Highly recommend listening to Psychology of Entrepreneurship, which they can just search on Google or search on podcasts. It's one of my all-time favorite podcasts. Like, I'm not just saying that because you're here. Like, I'm sure not just saying that because you're here, but like, I mean, it's not even a podcast, is it? We're calling it an audio documentary, which it is. Like, the production is...
Well, I'll tell you that, because I'm super excited to share this, actually. The steps and process is like, the team first does 5 hours of research on the guest. Then gives me a 1 hour piece of homework where I listen or read or consume that guest profile. Then I go in person to wherever they are across the world and interview them in long form between an hour and 2 hours in person. That gets sent away to the audio team, who first clean up the whole thing, you know, background, half sentences and all that kind of jazz. And then that gets sent to content, who remove 20-minute highlights, which then gets sent to the transcriber, that sends it to me, which I do a scripting over, narrate over, sends back to audio design team and sound design team, who put it together, and then show notes get done and content gets done. And that is one volume.
And I think it pays off. Like, you can tell, I mean, compared to, like, you know, something like what I'm doing, because I'd love to do something like that, and to, you know, whenever I have the budget or the time, but like, I just need to get stuff out.
It's the expertise, dude. It's not budget, it's not time. Even if you have the budget and the time right now, if you don't have the expertise, and here's the problem, everyone is cocky. They'll be like doctors who say, oh yeah, I've interviewed people all the time, my patients come in. It's a very different interview, this. I've done over 900 interviews and 3 podcasts to get to a point where this documentary is possible. And agency and book and first podcast and
systems
conference and speaking and fucking all these things to be able to have this audio documentary. So like, my platform is very different to anyone else. Don't take my thing and go, oh, he can do it. Like, there's other things that have happened to allow that to make...
Which is linking back to the iceberg thing. This is, we're seeing the podcast, but we're not seeing the you know, basically everything you've just talked about, you're telling us about. Which is, but yeah, people, go check that out. I love it. Where else can people find you?
No, that's great. I mean, I feel like I started the podcast because more and more I was worried that, you know, a friend would come up to me and say I was struggling with the stuff that was going on in my head, and I would have no answer for them. And I've lost enough friends to who felt that this life was too hard for them. So I just put that all together, and scratching my own itch, it's like one of the best pieces of art that I've decided to do, because there is no end point to that. It's just like purely for the love of putting it out and and I think that's
Awesome.
Thank you, man. Thank you
Thanks.
for saying all those nice things.
No worries. Thanks so much for coming on the
Cheers,
podcast.
buddy. Thanks, buddy. Thank you. Thanks.
All right. If you are still here, thank you so much for listening to this entire episode. If you got some value out of it, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on iTunes or shared it with your friends or family. Otherwise, I'll be putting up videos of this episode on Instagram and Facebook, so check it out there at Byron Dempsey or at Driven Young Podcast, and I'll see you on the next one.